ignore the noise.
For the most part, I'm just trying to stay, as level-headed, trying not to think about it, overthink it too much, because, at the end of the day, I'm still under contract. It's not my decision if I get traded or if I don't. So, just try and take it all in stride. When you really start thinking about it, your head will start spinning.
Garoppolo also told Schefter, which I find very funny, that his parents are all over the trade rumors, all over the internet, making it difficult for him to completely ignore the noise. You never stop being mom, I guess. Should Jimmy G insist on a trade to get out of New England?
Almost any other time, I would say yes, because you can't pass up on tens of millions of dollars that would come along with it. And the Patriots can't afford to pay him that, right, and keep him on the bench. In this case, this is one of the rare cases, I would say, you wait on the money, which I can't believe those words are coming out of my mouth. But I believe that Tom Brady will fall off the cliff. I believe it will happen before the end of this upcoming season. But even if I'm wrong and he's in a steady decline for, let's say, 3 more years and breaks every record of longevity known to man, you want to develop under Tom Brady and Bill Belichick and play for the Patriots and maybe go to the Hall of Fame one day? Or do you, and by the way, get rich? Or do you want to make a cash grab, go to another team, and who knows what happens? And I think Jimmy Garoppolo is for real. Based on what I've seen so far, he looks really good. I don't know how much better you can look in a short audition. He won both games, and he looked good doing it. But apparently, maybe injury-prone. I mean, he gets hurt in 2 games. And there's always the potential for a career-ending injury, even in a practice. I mean, it's a full-contact sport. So normally, I would say you got to go get the money. In this case, try to be the next Aaron Rodgers, Stephen A.
But, Max, are we sure that that's even an option for him to take over as the Patriots quarterback? Are we even sure that Bill Belichick looks at him as a future?
That is assuming Bill Belichick looks at him that way. The difficulty in talking about moves Bill Belichick will make, because he's both the GM and the head coach and more successful at both than anyone maybe ever, is it's tough to question the logic and the wisdom of the moves. So, right, if Bill Belichick does move him, tough to say he should have been the quarterback of the future, although he spent a 2nd-round pick on him. If he gets a 1st-rounder back, he's already improved his lot. And the assumption that Jimmy G is going to want him to take the money like everyone else who's ever lived may force Belichick's hand there.
The question was, should Garoppolo wait or insist on a trade now? The answer is yes. Because now is when the suckers are everywhere, looking at 94 career passes, looking at 2 games this year, and saying to themselves, excuse me, 43 or 63, 68% of his passes were completed for over 500 yards in 2 games. This dude's the truth. We want him. We're willing to give up whatever we can to get him. This is the height of his value. Now, could it be higher down the line? Maybe, if Tom Brady gets hurt or Tom Brady decides to retire. Last time we looked at Tom Brady, he was pretty damn healthy, winning his 5th career Super Bowl championship and passing for over 400 yards in the process, and telling not just the world, but his beautiful supermodel wife, sorry, honey, I know you want me to retire. Ain't happening. I'm having entirely too much fun. I expect and intend to do this for years to come. That is Jimmy Garoppolo should have had that ringing in his ear. Not only that, let's also keep in mind, when it's about the money, the Patriots ain't the place to go for it. Patriots aren't known for paying their guys. Tom Brady gets paid, but most others don't. A matter of fact, they get shipped off before their time is due to get paid, because that's not how Bill Belichick rolls. And even in the case of Tom Brady has religiously restructured his salary, cut his salary. Modifications have been taking place all over the place, because Tom Brady loves being a Patriot. He loves being there. They love having him there, and he's willing to sacrifice his dollars just to be happy in the place where he's at. All of those things work against Jimmy Garoppolo staying in New England. He should get the hell up out of there quick, fast, and in a hurry, because he supposedly wants to be a football player and a quarterback in the National Football League, and that ain't going to happen anytime soon in New England.
His value may be peak at the moment or in the near future in terms of what the Patriots can get for him on the trade market. I don't know that his value is peak for him in terms of the money he can get right now. Not sure about that. I don't think a team is going to...
What I'm saying is, if you're not playing, Max, and let's say, for example, hypothetically speaking, let's just say, for example, that Jimmy Garoppolo is there for the next year or 2, but doesn't play it down. because Tom Brady plays all 16 games. And the only time you see Jimmy Garoppolo is in preseason. I would make the argument, how would his value elevate, and he hasn't been in a real game for a year or two because Tom Brady's still playing?
I'll make the argument that shrewd teams will look at that and say Belichick wanted to keep him. We saw what he did in those 2 games when he got action. We can see him in the preseason, and he's had 2 more years of development under the greatest coach and quarterback maybe who ever lived.
Better than that. You know, I got you here. This is how you're not telling the truth. Because you know as well as I do that businesses, no matter how much your value is valued and elevated, businesses find a way to devalue you at every turn when it comes to the money. So if you're sitting on a bench, you might be right in terms of how they respect him and how they're looking at him. I'm talking about what they will conceivably do to use as an excuse to minimize the monetary commitment they normally would have to give him. You can't pull off now what you'd be able to pull off 2 years from now if he doesn't play.
I disagree. The quarterback market is always going to be the same, because this idea that there aren't enough quarterbacks to go around is not because there aren't enough good quarterbacks. There are tons of good quarterbacks. It's because they're compared to one another, and in any population, you can put them on a bell curve. Some will be over here really, really good. Most will be in the middle.
But
some
how
will
would
be
you
really, really
Jimmy?
bad compared to their peers. Therefore, there will always be jobs available, and people's imaginations will run away with them remembering what he did in those 2 games.
So in other words, you're trying to tell me, I just want to be clear.
Yeah.
What you're trying to say, Max Kellerman, is that if Jimmy Garoppolo, I'm speaking hypothetically, we obviously know they would pay him now.
Sure.
Okay, we both concede that now. But what you're saying is, if Jimmy Garoppolo rode the bench for the next 2 years because Tom Brady is healthy and is playing every game, you're telling me that teams would look at that and ignore it based on the 2 games they saw from this year, 2 years from now, and still give him money?
That's why I can answer that, Stephen A. You're a GM. He's available in 2 years, 2 more years tutelage under Brady and Belichick. You give him money, yes or no? More or less than
I'm not giving him the
now.
money I would give him now.
You
That's
give
my
more
point.
money
I'm not
now?
giving him the money I would give him now.
Okay, we agree to disagree.
I'm not giving him the money I would give him now. Right.
All right, so some question marks surrounding him, and clearly his parents will continue to monitor all those trade rumors. But are there question marks regarding Luke Walton's future? Should he be worried? Now that Magic is running the show, we debate if a change needs to be made. Plus, Deshaun Jackson left the Eagles on bad terms when then head coach Chip Kelly cut him for, quote, football reasons. But now he says he's open to a return. Take a listen.
It's a great story ending. I mean, I guess you can say, starting your career somewhere,
That he wanted. He didn't want this. He didn't want the Lakers to be this inept. Let's keep in mind, as Bill Plaschke of the Los Angeles Times reminded me yesterday, that Jim Buss wasn't even involved with basketball. He was involved with the horses. He wasn't even involved with basketball. I had people joking around, and they were dead serious, swearing to me that sometimes during games, he was down the block at Hooters. I mean, this dude, and then when you consider some of the decisions that were made that were just flagrantly and flat out embarrassing, all right? And then you consider the reason behind it, that it had nothing to do with basketball. It was about making sure that he proved himself. It was about making sure that Phil Jackson wouldn't be allowed to ingratiate himself within the Lakers organization. It was about going against the grain and going against his sister. None of the things I mentioned to you had anything to do with basketball. And ultimately, that's what his responsibility was. So there was a flagrant dereliction of duty that he had exercised for years. Jeannie Buss didn't address it. Furthermore, what makes this even more poignant, Jim Buss said years ago, I need 3 years to turn this around. 3 years was last year. He should have been gone last year. He asked for the 3 years. He got the 3 years. He failed miserably in those 3 years. That should have been enough. Jeannie Buss still did not make a move. And at the end of the day, what it comes down to is this. Whether it's 17, 18, I don't know the exact number of the attendance at the Staples Center on a nightly basis, the purple and gold, the paraphernalia, and all the stuff that comes with it. Laker Nation has stood tall and supported this organization through thick and thin for many, many years. From the days of Jack Kent Cooke to Dr. Jerry Buss. They deserved better. And if you can't do it for them, it damn sure needed to be for a better reason that I needed to look out for my brother because of my father's wish. When you know part of your father's wish was to make sure that this organization never nosedived. And that's exactly what happened. And it wasn't because of incompetence. It was because this man's ego got in the way of whatever basketball judgment that he had. He put that ahead of his own interest. And to his last breath, Max, look how he went out yesterday. What did they say? What did the report say? Jim Buss and Mitch Kupchak are sitting there trying to negotiate a deal for DeMarcus Cousins. They did it behind Jeannie's back. Didn't consult with her, consulted and polled lower level dudes, but not going to let the governor of the team, weigh in on the decision. These are the kind of things that he was doing for years.
Yes,
Jeannie knew it and did nothing about it. That's on her.
The dominoes started to fall, and everyone knew, and this happened. I mean, universally, it was said this is now a 5-year setback. That was the amount of time everyone said. They traded for Chris Paul. They hung on to Bynum and traded for Chris Paul. They were going to use Bynum to get Dwight Howard, which is what wound up happening. Pau Gasol and Lamar Odom for Chris Paul. And they saved $20 million in the process. In fact, Jim and Mitch at the time made such a great trade that Dan Gilbert and others... Excuse me, Dan Gilbert and others were so critical of the trade, they actually put in writing the Lakers ripped off everyone so bad they got the best player and saved $20 million that Stern came in and turned it down. Now, wait a minute. If Jeannie Buss is in New York at the owners' meeting and the atmosphere is such that trade won't fly, that's as much on her to get in touch with them as vice versa. The problem was communication, not just Jim Buss and Mitch Kupchak's ineptitude. Because had that trade gone through and it was approved by all parties, the entire course of events is different. As for their
recent... You just proved my point.
But that's also on Jeannie.
In other words, what you're saying is that's another reason to criticize her.
No, we're talking about did she wait too long to fire him? Is that the criticism?
Max, you bring up the trade. Hold on. You bring up the point about, okay, he makes the deal for Chris Paul. It was in the aftermath of LeBron going to South Beach. They knew the tenor of the owners. You don't sit up there and get the best player while saving $20 million in cap space.
You're getting mad at them
for a deal that's going to fly.
You're getting mad at them for making a great trade. She was the one in New York getting the tenor of the owners.
We're going to get into the Lakers from all different angles and touch on it
much more. It's so much to teach you. It's so much to teach you about basketball.
We're going to get into
it really is.
Throughout the show.
It really is.
Just get started here on First Take. When we come back, one ESPN analyst with a famous last name is saying he thinks Cam Newton isn't a top 10 quarterback in the league. Is he crazy? Plus, the Bears are reportedly shopping Jay Cutler, but should anybody touch him with a 10-foot pole? I think we know how Stephen A. feels about that. But how about Jeff Saturday and Max Kellerman? Stay tuned.
The best recognize the best. I'm talking about First Take, the best debate show on TV. We're talking about sports debate, too. They can go anywhere. First Take, my man Stephen A., Molly, my girl, and, of course, Max. What can we say?